weaknesses in, I think, the church today is that many times we don't really know what to do with the concept of doctrine. And what I mean by that is that we either think that theology is useless, and we might be driven to that because we see how contentious the church can be with itself sometimes, yeah? And we say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that kind of like antagonistic, divisive, you know? And so then the opposite swing is, let's just not like do a lot of that. Let's not do a lot of theology. And so we maybe think that theology is pointless or useless. And I've said this before in our church. Years ago now, we were having a discussion in our church, a broad discussion, and one of the most astounding things I heard was someone say to me in my office, they asked me this question. They said, are you really going to let theology determine what we do as a church? And it was the weirdest statement. I couldn't believe it. And what I really think it was an indicator that this person saw like doctrine as insufficient to actually guide our practical decision making in our church. And you could see this creep in lots of different ways. You might have an idea of when we think about what we should do with kind of the business of our church. Like sometimes like more business-minded folks can come to faith in Christ, they can come into a church, and then the church is doing things with its structure, with its money, and they don't understand what's going on there. And they don't understand sometimes that like, well, because we have a theology that is actually informing everything we do. Now that doesn't mean that we are reckless or foolish with, say, money, right? But it does mean that we're not actually going to see money the exact same way as like a Fortune 500 company. Do you get that? And the reason for that is not just an abstract, vague notion of like, well, we're a church and we're not. No, it's because we actually have specific doctrinal, theological commitments as believers in Jesus in the family of God. And that means that we're going to do things dependent upon that. So theology, people who think that theology is useless are people who, I think more accurately, are people who have not thought through how what they believe about God informs the choices that they make in life. Which is to say that like if you think that you can go through your life and theology doesn't matter to you, what I will challenge you with is I think that you're just not thinking deeply enough. I think that you're not thinking deeply enough. Theology is in fact critical. And I'll say this, all of life is theological in nature. Because every single thing that you think is at rock bottom tied up in certain assumptions that you make about the world that you live in and about your place in it and about whether or not you think someone made it.